It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a bombshell Tuesday. Gary, how are you?
Yeah, I guess we won't have to say where's Durham anymore, will we?
Well, we can ask it, but the answer is going to be he's gone fishing because apparently he's just about done. His report is out. Well, he's not done talking. I'm sure he will be talking to members of Congress soon.
At least the House. Now, you have Lindsey Graham telling Durbin he wants to hear from Durham.
Yeah.
I have a feeling with the FBI coming out and just saying, well, we've made all the changes. The FBI didn't come out and say Durham was wrong.
Right.
At all.
No.
They said, no, we got to make these changes. I have a feeling the media will say, okay, the FBI says they're going to straighten out everything and goodbye, this
right,
story's
or,
over.
yeah, the whole, that was then, this is now, and
right.
and they're going to make sure there's no more of that going on. Okay.
Right. But the one thing that came out of this is now the American public, the truth is out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not being denied by anybody.
Right.
You may hear, nobody was, only one person was prosecuted and convicted.
Mm.
There were 3 people actually prosecuted.
Yeah. Right.
One convicted. And so, but for the rest of them, no law was broken. Well, fine, then disinformation's fine because no law is broken with disinformation. So shut up about that, Democrats.
Right.
No, and well, the whole thing is with I actually want them to shut up about it because the biggest this was the report that showed what we already knew, that the entire Russia collusion, that Trump colluded with the Russians, all of it was Democratic disinformation, which was paid for, and the lies created by the Hillary campaign and the DNC. So if one thing it gets out of this is where the Republicans look at the Democrats and say, you people need to shut up about disinformation because you're the biggest purveyors of it.
Yeah, right.
But here's Jake Tapper yesterday on CNN.
Regardless, the report is now here. It has dropped. And it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is, regardless, devastating to the FBI.
It produced, if you've been a long-time listener of the show, there were no surprises for you.
No. Yeah.
You know, and again, I haven't read the entire 300-page report. In fact, I went to sleep. When I went to sleep, I didn't see that it was out yet. I woke up going, oh, whoa.
Well, yeah,
I went to sleep extra early yesterday.
It kept me awake.
Yeah.
Because it was right about the time I wanted to start shutting things down. Thanks a lot, John Durham.
Yes.
You finally release it. Could you not do it in the morning? But yeah, I went through a lot of it. I didn't get through all 300 pages.
Yeah, neither did I.
But yeah, it is pretty much what we knew. It tells... What I do like is that it does tell the story.
Right.
Now, it will be up to the GOP in the House to help that story be told, be known, because almost no one is going to read the report. I would suggest if you're on social media, follow Just the News. John Solomon, follow both of them. That's his website. He did something on this today, but he's probably going to be doing a lot more as he goes through this in the coming days. Along with Sarah A. Carter, they were 2 of the first reporters who were really on, and I think, knee-deep in the whole Russian collusion thing. They did go back. I think they went back further than Mueller did.
Well, you also have again the documentation that was done way before the Durham report, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Was Ball of Collusion by Andrew McCarthy.
Yeah, this is what
which I read that entire book.
Yeah, that's one thing that we always said. Well, hold on, it's not even done yet. You need or does he have a deal for a second book? because that might be required. I guess we'll see where it goes. But these are the individuals that all along the way were doing the real work on this and doing the real analysis on this. And it allowed us to follow this from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And we started asking questions from the beginning, and it kind of led down the path where we thought it was going to go. There were maybe a couple of surprises, but anytime you have Hillary Clinton involved, not really a surprise.
Well, what you did get out of the Durham report, and we have said this for a while, but Durham verified it, that the only political party that colluded with the Russians to try to change the outcome of the election, and this is where he goes back to Iggy Danchenko's past, mm-hmm. that the FBI didn't look into. But the only party that colluded with the Russians to try to change the outcome of the election was the Hillary campaign and the DNC. Mm-hmm. There was no collusion with the Russians with Trump. Didn't exist.
Right.
They went through he went through the dossier, but just so people know, in case you don't know the story, to simplify it, the entire thing. Oh, this is the other thing that came out of it, and we knew this already, but it's in the report, so it's official now, and nobody's debating it. That both Obama and both Biden knew. Because this had come out, this happened, I believe, in July of 2016, if memory serves me correctly, where the intelligence agencies knew that Hillary Clinton was going to try to set up Donald Trump by saying he colluded with the Russians. Mm-hmm. Both Biden, and this is the thing, everybody knew that. We now know that. Everybody knew that.
Right.
Biden knew it. Obama knew it. The FBI knew it. Everybody knew, the intelligence out there, which was correct intelligence, said Hillary Clinton is going to attempt to set up Trump by saying that he colluded with the Russians, but she's going to basically manufacture it, and that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. Exactly what happened.
Look, one of the things that did come out of this that was kind of, I thought, very interesting was the fact that Susan Rice, literally on her way out the door, wrote something to herself, knowing that it would be officially inside the system once she was gone. And, she was basically, in part, throwing Comey under the bus and kind of describing a couple of things. But the problem with, we've talked about conspiracy versus a culture. A culture is the similar mindset. They all think the same. They all want the same. They all behave the same way. And that certainly exists and has for far too long in the political system inside the Beltway, in parts of the Justice Department. And now we have seen it as, the Clintons were fully embedded, of course, in all of this. But you're going to, every once in a while, see someone who is uncomfortable for one reason or the other. Not that Susan Rice was a conservative, not that anybody, really thought that anybody else was going to find out. It was just that they believed there was, if it does come down, I don't want the axe coming down on me. And I think that was that Susan Rice move, and I think that tells a lot. I think there's a lot. I wonder if anybody will call Susan Rice, if the GOP will call Susan Rice to testify. I doubt it. But the idea of this story being told, and this is basically what was going to happen. The Sussman trial, was a wash because you're not going to get a jury, at least in that location. You're not going to get a jury, apparently, that believes in the law. Oh, yeah, lying to the FBI. Yeah, we believe he did. But there are other crimes out there worth pursuing. It's not worth the time of going after Sussman.
That's the one juror that said that. Yeah.
So, when you have that in effect, again, that demonstrates a culture versus the conspiracy. Nobody has to tell that person to think that way. That's how they think. And they think like a lot of people in this entire scenario. But the story being told by Durham is what's important.
Well, Durham, by the way, hit that the FBI knew that Sussman was lying.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So they knew. The
evidence was clear,
right. And we'll break it down for everybody because we want to break this down because it may not be the final time, especially if if Durham actually testifies before Congress. He probably will the House. I don't believe that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats in the Senate don't want to touch it at all.
Right.
But the only thing is, what you have here, you don't have anyone. Nobody is saying it didn't happen. And I think what people need to understand is everything that we went through in all those years, everything about Trump colluding with the Russians, everything that Adam Schiff said, he was a pathological liar. Mm-hmm. And so, by the way, it was appropriate if Democrats were upset that Adam Schiff was taken off of the House Intelligence Committee by Kevin McCarthy. This justifies all of it here.
Yep.
The Durham report, because he was a pathological liar claiming he had evidence of Trump colluding with the Russians and criminal acts of colluding with the Russians, and he was lying to the American public. In fact, when he put out his report, he lied about what the intelligence actually said to the American public.
Yeah.
And so everything that happened in that time, and when you think about it, now we know that the Mueller investigation, any investigation that started on it, they had nothing. They had no evidence at all at any time throughout the entire Mueller investigation that there was any wrongdoing or that President Trump at that time had colluded with the Russians. And they knew it all the way through. And you and I talked about this. Mm-hmm. And you and I said from the very beginning, if the Mueller report didn't come out and go down and say, okay, Trump colluded with the Russians. All right, where do we find the best evidence of this? Where's the best evidence? Oh, the best evidence would have to be in the FISA application, right? Because that would have to be the best. Because if you're able to get a FISA application, you're able to get a secret warrant to spy on a member of the Trump campaign, which is unprecedented in American history. That evidence must be so damning about Russia collusion that we need to go down that path. And we need to find out. That's where we start right there. That's what any good investigator would have said.
Right.
They never did that. And we knew when they didn't do that, we said, you'll know it's political if they didn't do that because they didn't want to find out. They knew they had nothing.
Right.
And they knew if they went down that, what they would find is more evidence of a bogus FISA warrant against the Trump campaign, and then it would blow everything open at that point, so they couldn't go down that path. And we had stated that. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you know we called that a couple of years ago. We called that way before the Mueller report actually came out.
Well, look at it this way. With the liberal media and how much they carried this over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Then it all disappeared in January of 2021. Think about this. If Trump had actually colluded with the Russians, and there was evidence of that, it would be, so far, until we find out more on the Biden thing, the biggest scandal in presidential history. If what they were claiming was true,
right,
and they proved it, it would be the story, and it would be the only thing, and rightly so, that the media would be talking about, and they don't talk about it at all anymore. Because they know it's not true.
Yeah.
They know it's bogus. The lie worked to that end, and then they moved on to the next lie. That's what they do. A lie requires that. It requires multiple people carrying it. The truth will sit there until it's discovered and still be the truth. And this was, my gosh, I don't know how many lies that were told in this entire chain of events.
Everything. Every story that said there was evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians, every story in the Washington Post, every story in the New York Times, every story in the USA Today, all of it was a lie.
We really need to have
for a period of 2-3 years. A lie, all of it.
Yep. We need to have that FISA-con we've been talking about.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Not only do dirty cabin air filters contaminate the air you breathe, they can also cause major damage to HVAC components like blower motor resistors and AC compressors. Have your cabin air filters serviced if you notice less airflow than usual coming from the interior vents. This is a common sign that your filters are at the end of their life cycle. Breathe easy when the air in your cab is fresh. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Friday Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. So just to go through it, remember the whole thing that Trump colluded with the Russians to hack or change the outcome of the election. We all remember that. What actually happened was the Hillary campaign and the DNC took campaign money, funneled it from a law firm to an opposition research group that, people use. Remember that whole thing that the opposition research group, I can't think of their name at the moment here.
Perkins Coie was the law firm, and it was.
I got my blank on that.
I'll think of it in a second. Yeah,
but the opposition research group actually hired Iggy Danchenko. They funneled
Fusion GPS.
Yeah, they funneled the money through the law firm, and they were fined hundreds of thousands of dollars because they broke campaign finance law. They were trying to hide it and said it was, for legal fees, and it was actually for opposition research. The money went, some of the money, because it was funneled through, so everybody takes their cut, but a certain amount went to Iggy Danchenko, who was responsible for, I think, about 75 or 80% of the actual dossier. And he actually sat around and a lot of the information came from a drunk fest where they just made stuff up about Trump.
Right.
And then that went back to Fusion GPS, and then they gave it to the FBI. The FBI did not do their job, did not vet it, did not obviously look at it, did not vet Iggy Danchenko and his Russian intelligence ties from the past when he worked with the Brookings Institute, a liberal think tank, and they actually put out a bogus warrant based on bogus information in the dossier to spy on the Trump campaign. So that was one. The other one was the Hillary campaign giving the money to the law firm Perkins Coie and then creating a false story using Michael Sussman that Trump had through Alpha Bank.
Yeah.
And Alpha Bank, that's how he communicated with Putin, was through Alpha Bank. Well, Hillary Clinton paid and created that lie that Sussman tried to sell to the FBI. He lied to the FBI about it. The FBI believed he was lying when he told them that. But they actually, once Hillary Clinton did that, once they, sent it up there and Sussman went there, then they promoted to the media that the FBI was investigating Trump, for ties through Alpha Bank.
Yeah, which technically they were, but it was based on a lie of false information given to them.
Technically what was?
5 hours a night. And still not enough. Listen to our podcast available on the app and on our website, rediradioshow.com.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So the second big enterprise, if you want to call it, ran by the Hillary campaign, as we didn't get a chance to finish this one, was where the Hillary campaign, in cooperation with Michael Sussman, who was working for Perkins Coie, he and I can't think of the guy that worked for the Georgia College place, came up with this thing that Trump was communicating with Alpha Bank. Now, there were communications from the Trump campaign, but it was basically, mass marketing. But they came up with the story, the false story, the lie that Trump was communicating with Putin through Alpha Bank. And it was completely false. They went to the FBI about it. Durham writes that the FBI figured that it was a lie, but once they got the story, then Sussman, Perkins Coie, the Hillary campaign, whoever, went to the media and started selling the story that Trump was being investigated for the whole Alpha Bank story by the FBI. Well, who was it? I can't think. What was the media outlet that reported it right before the election? Forgot who it was. I just can't remember who it was who reported it. It wasn't Politico. I just can't remember who reported.
No, it was. I'll think of it in a second.
Yeah, but the media reported
BuzzFeed.
No, it wasn't BuzzFeed. No.
BuzzFeed. Well, okay.
BuzzFeed did the dossier originally.
Yeah, they did the dossier. Yeah.
It wasn't BuzzFeed. It was. I just can't think of who it was at the moment. We'll figure it out. But once they ran with the story, then the Hillary campaign said, "See, here's the story. Trump is colluding." They made it as if they had no idea this was going on, and here's the media reporting the story that the FBI is investigating the claims of Trump, colluding with Putin through Alpha Bank, and it was completely false. It was paid. The lie was paid for and marketed by the Hillary campaign. Including, as Durham had reported, that Jake Sullivan, the current national security advisor for President Biden, he knew about this. He knew about it. Yeah. And so they made it all. Everything was made up by the Hillary campaign to set up the Trump campaign. Everything. And afterwards, they all kept it going. Reading from Jonathan Turley here. The report discusses the Department of Justice and FBI being politically manipulated. The evidence vindicates Trump that this was a well-orchestrated hit job by the Clinton campaign and government officials with a predisposition to investigate Trump. Durham states clearly that there was no basis, zero basis, for the FBI to launch this investigation despite the claims made by James Comey. The Durham report states that Clinton General Counsel Mark Elias declined to be voluntarily interviewed by the office. Elias was recently severed by the Democratic National Committee from representation. The campaign was fined by the FEC for his hiding the funding of the dossier as a legal expenditure. And so everything that they had on Trump, everything.
That was all bogus.
Was bogus. Everything was bogus. From the Durham report, from Turley, within days of the receipt, the unvetted and unverified Steele reports were used to support probable cause in the FBI's FISA applications. Durham notes, foreign policy advisor, one stated, however, that it was possible that Clinton had proposed ideas on these topics to the campaign's leadership, who may have approved those ideas. Another notable line, on July 26, 2016, Clinton allegedly approved a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to tie Trump to Russia as a means of distracting the public from her use of the private email server. And it worked because Comey felt, a higher loyalty. Oh, God. As I say, because I like the way it sounds, the filthy rot in the FBI started with James Comey.
Well, that filthy rot started with James Comey.
Yeah,
we may be able to go back to Mueller, but we don't know yet. And his time at the FBI. No, I mean, the whole thing on Alpha Bank, all of it. I mean, if you think about how, and it was always going to be this way. It was always going to be very carefully orchestrated, very sophisticated. And because it's the Clintons, they know how to orchestrate this. Get something in the hands of the FBI. And then run to the media and say, hey, look, the FBI's looking at this. Because the FBI was looking at it, but it was based on bogus information given to the FBI. But the FBI carried it, and they kept carrying it. Now, Nellie Orr is someone who worked at, she was an executive at Fusion GPS at the time. And her husband was a high-ranking official at the FBI, Bruce Orr. So that connection is important because Bruce Orr at one point told others in the FBI, I don't know that we can rely on this information. It's not fully vetted. It's not fully verified. I'm paraphrasing there, but that was the message being sent to others in the FBI. They kept running with it. Time and time again during this entire thing, in both of these major enterprises against Trump, they made stuff up and it was disproven and they kept running with it anyway.
Yeah. Same accusation with the FISA warrants, a continuation of it. They knew it was bogus.
Yeah. And then on her way out the door, Susan Rice, the day that Trump was being sworn in as president, writes that email to herself. Well, why would you do that on the system? She's not trying to keep notes. She won't have access to it. It's for somebody else to see down the road, to cover her backside. That's important to me because I want to know exactly what she was thinking on that day beyond what she wrote. This is something that has to be fully vetted, that I would love to see fully vetted. I don't have the confidence that it will be fully vetted. And part of the reason is because, that was then, this is now. That whole attitude that everybody has, that it's not worth reviewing, that, the FBI promises not to do that again. Okay, sorry, we'll clean that up. And that's kind of the attitude you saw in the media, the mainstream media yesterday. Now,
because it's Trump.
Because it's Trump.
And it's acceptable.
You don't want to get to the truth. Right. I mean, honestly, again, if that whole thing were true, it would, keep in mind, he's officially running for 24. If the Russian collusion thing were true and had been proven to be true, it would be the only thing you would say about Trump. Forget about January of 21. Forget about his lawyers in the wake of Election Day 2020. Forget about anything, because that entire thing, now, of course, if it had been proven to be true, then he would have been he absolutely removed from office.
Or remember, he was a traitor.
Mm-hmm.
Remember all of that.
He was a Russian agent.
All of that made up by the Hillary campaign. The only campaign that dealt with anyone who could be considered a Russian agent was the Hillary campaign.
Yeah.
It was the Democrats that colluded with the Russians to try to change the outcome of the 2016 election by the Democrat standard, and now what Durham has said, because Durham pointed back to the intelligence ties that Durham had, or excuse me, not Durham had, that Danchenko had, who helped create the dossier. And the questioning, remember when he worked for the Brookings Institute, where he's asking people if they'd like to make some money.
Right. Yeah.
For knowledge.
Right.
And so when you look, but here's the thing. We know what the truth is now. We said the truth would eventually come out. And you and I remember sitting here on January 2nd of 2017. Wow. Think about it. Over 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Wow. And we're looking at each other going, where did this, because we had just got back from Christmas vacation, we go, where did this thing appear? This thing that Trump colluded with the Russians. Where's the evidence? What is this? Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And here we are now, almost 6.5 years later. It was all a lie, all a hoax created by the Democrats, by the Hillary campaign and the DNC. All of it was completely 100% false.
It was Slate, by the way, the media organization.
Slate.com?
Slate.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And Hillary was tweeting about that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
On October 31st of 2016. This was days before the election. They thought this was their last-minute October surprise.
Yep. So they created that lie that Trump was communicating with Putin through Alpha Bank. It was a hoax. It was a lie made up by the Hillary campaign and the surrogates of the Hillary campaign, sold to the media. When the media reported it, then the campaign said, oh, look what Trump's doing, on a lie and a hoax that they created.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's the biggest political dirty trick in the history of American politics. And I know Democrats are okay with it. It's okay to do those things. You know, they claim they're against disinformation or anything that isn't true.
Right.
But the fact is they're not. Because you don't hear any Democrat come up and say, look, this is horrible what the Hillary campaign. Has one Democrat stood up and said, this is horrendous what the Hillary campaign did. It cannot be acceptable. We cannot do things like this. Has one Democrat stood up and said that?
No.
Nope. Not one.
No, and the more we ignore this and say, well, it's, sorry, we'll clean that up at the FBI, that's our bad. Then the more, the greater the chance that this happens again, or is happening right now. Yep. None of it would shock me. I mean, if we came out again with something else down the road, there's no telling what they're going to try and do. If no one is concerned about the truth and holding people at the very least politically responsible, I mean, Durham is done here as a special prosecutor, but he can still tell the story. Man, I'd read that book 1,000,000 times over.
Well, the question is to Americans, should the FBI serve one political party in a lie in order to destroy another candidate, whether they break the law or not? Now, they did break the law because, as we know, Kleinsmith lied on that Pfizer report. He should have done jail time for it and serious jail time for it.
Yeah.
Kleinsmith. He got out. I mean, nobody was really punished for it. But we know it. The American public knows it now. We know what the truth is. We know it was all bogus. Does it matter to the American public? Because I know before we get the calls, and you don't have to call, well, but nobody was really prosecuted severely on it. Yeah, but if the public doesn't want anybody punished for it, if the public is okay with the FBI serving one political party by promoting a lie and saying to hell with the law and the hell with investigative practices, we're just going to go with what we feel politically. If the American public is okay with it,
right? Exactly.
Well, that will be the continued degradation of our republic.
Right. Yeah, if we want to populist our way out of this, well, they all do it. Well, throw all the bums out. They're all corrupt. then great. We're not going to pay attention to it, and don't be surprised when it happens to you.
But we know what the truth is.
Yep, we do.
6.5 years later.
Yeah, wow.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, more stories also breaking yesterday. It was a bombshell Monday, but also we'll hear some reaction on the Durham report, all coming up.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want. In case you can't listen live overnight, you can listen during the day, whenever, wherever, however.
With whoever.
With whomever.
Whomever.
Yes. Well, let's play some audio here. This is Andrew McCarthy, who wrote the book Ball of Collusion. Probably covered this better than anyone in more detail because he wrote a whole entire book on it. Fox News contributor, National Review, and he talks about it. And this is right after the report came out. Just to let you know, whether it's Andrew McCarthy or people like us that followed this from the very beginning, there were very few surprises. Yeah. Because Durham had already, in legal filings over the last couple of years, let us know where this was going.
Right.
So I really, I didn't learn. I'm trying to think if there's anything new that I actually learned. I mean, there were things that he said that I knew already. For example, I guess that the stated fact that Obama and Biden absolutely knew what Hillary was doing, that might be new from the point of being both of them knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that both of them knew all along that this was all bogus. But here's Andrew McCarthy yesterday.
Well, it looks like about what you'd expect if you followed this story closely over the last number of years. But what Durham is concluding, mainly the target of the investigation, it appears on the basis of what we've been able to see so far, is the FBI in particular, which ran the Crossfire hurricane investigation. That was the code name that they had for this. What he's saying is that they lacked fidelity to the strict obligations of law enforcement, that they basically took information that was politically motivated from obviously politically motivated sources. It's clear he's talking there about the Clinton campaign, that they didn't vet it, they didn't corroborate it. They went to the FISA court and swore to it under oath. And even after it emerged over time that the information that they had presented to the court was not accurate, they not only didn't go back to the court and correct it, they doubled down and continued to get new surveillance warrants.
I'll just pause it there for a moment because all of that we knew already. And as he said, we knew that. Mm-hmm. Interesting how she goes into, Martha here goes into on Fox, goes into why did it take so long? And he talks about the fact that 29 pages of this is classified. And he said one of the problems is the intelligence agencies were involved in this, and it's so tough to break through the secrecy of that. Here's this.
So you're saying it basically adds up to the reporting that we've had over the last several years, and you have reported on and talked about throughout the course of this. And it took years to get this report, really, Andy. So, I mean, that's one of the big questions. What took so long, and what's the impact of this report?
Yeah, I've always suspected, Martha, that what would frustrate this investigation and what would make it take so long is it seemed to me that American intelligence agencies and also foreign intelligence agencies were pervasively involved in this. And it was always going to be very difficult for Durham to get to the bottom of that because even if there was smoking gun information there, and I don't know if there was or there wasn't, I do know that what they're saying is this 300-page report is unclassified. There's apparently a 29-page classified annex that's attached to it, but mainly what we're getting is an unclassified report. That suggests to me that no matter what was there, the intelligence relationships that exist between American intelligence services and their foreign counterparts are too important to national security that they were going to be risked in order to be completely transparent about what happened and how this investigation got started.
Because remember, it was the intelligence agencies that told the FBI and told Obama and told Biden that Hillary was attempting to set Trump up.
Right.
This was in July of that year.
Right.
And the topic that he was colluding with the Russians, that there were Trump-Russia ties, she was going to use that in order to deflect. So Comey knew this all along. Comey knew this. That Hillary was attempting to...
Well, and they also knew that, and I mentioned Nellie Orr working for Fusion GPS, her husband, at the time, a high-ranking official in the FBI, Bruce Orr, and Bruce Orr had sent a message to others in the FBI, this is on the dossier stuff, that this is not verified. Again, that we can't, it's basically this information isn't solid, but they took it and they ran with it anyway. Over and over again, things that were disproven internally, or at least had massive question marks, were carried on. And, you look at that kind of behavior because I know you did the same thing in kind of the overview of what the liberal media is doing. And if you look at it, it's like, here's the 305-page report, but he doesn't recommend any further charges. Well, here's the question. What do we actually learn from it? I mean, it may be that Durham, it clearly is, that Durham he doesn't have the evidence to bring any other charges because, as you mentioned, one of the things is that a lot of the information is classified information. And if you're talking about something happening internally, it would have to be an IG that works on that, whatever agency you're talking about, in this case, the FBI. And if the FBI leadership at that time moved things through, especially when they're no longer there, Comey hasn't been there for years. And so you could see, I could hear Director Wray going right now, well, the previous director may have done business this way and blah, 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 and we don't condone anything that is wrong. We only condone things that are right, and so we're going to do things that are right, and we're not going to do things that are wrong. And all this, garbage over and over again, and basically telling you, nothing's going to be done about it. Because here's the thing, too, that we have learned since all this. That is the time and time again, we've learned how they are willing to weaponize agencies within the Department of Justice. We certainly saw that with, the idea, how dare you, parents, show up at a school board meeting and and demonstrate your frustrations. You're going to be labeled terrorists. So, and we said that back at the beginning of all this. Look, if they're going to do this to someone who is an international figure, keep in mind, before he even ran for president, he was a global household name, Donald Trump. Everybody on the planet knew that guy. If they're willing to do somebody like that and then add to it the fact that he was a candidate and then the nominee and then the president, sitting president, and they're willing to go that hard at him, don't think for a moment they won't come at you. And so when they went, at these parents, that decided to go speak up for their children and defend what's going on or complain about what's going on in schools, don't be surprised when they come after you. And this is the world, quite unfortunately, that we live in, and hopefully the GOP focus in the House, if they're going to have Durham tell this story, it will be to leverage this and to demonstrate the rot that I believe still exists there at the DOJ. And again, it's a similar mindset. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy.
But I think the biggest problem is the fact that the American public, half of the American public, is okay with this. That's really the problem. There is no outrage.
Oh, sure, yeah. No,
there is no outrage from Democrats about what happened here whatsoever. Even the Democratic voter is okay with it because it's okay to do these things if it's Trump.
Yeah, no, if you don't have political...
I'm not going to just say Trump. I believe any Republican now, it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
It's okay to weaponize the government. It's okay. We knew this from the very beginning, and we took flack from Democrats when we said the Mueller investigation, there should not be a special counsel on this.
Right.
And there shouldn't be a special counsel on it because you can't even identify a potential crime.
Yeah.
You can't identify for example, we believe that a special counsel for Biden should have been called a long time ago. Why? Because we see the money flow. We see the money flow, and we know that his son, who is the conduit of the money, and there's no other reason that you enrich members of a president's family. They weren't providing any service. The only service they could be possibly providing is influence peddling, and every investigator knows that. Every single investigator. You don't think that every federal attorney in the United States doesn't look at this and go, oh, God. I mean, yeah, we'd be looking into this big time, if this was under our purview, because obviously, when they're trying to evade, payments, you can see the number of LLCs, and the media is dismissing it because the media doesn't want to touch it. The only thing they can do is dismiss it, because they're political activists, whatever. But as we had stated for the Mueller report, we had stated from day one, you should be able to identify what a possible crime is specifically, not generically, but they were on a fishing trip.
Yep.
They knew when they started that investigation. They knew in the middle of the investigation. They knew at the end of the investigation. They had absolutely nothing on Trump. They had nothing. And I believe they knew at that point that it was made up by the Hillary campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe they did. And it's, when you look at it, it is, it's insane. We talked about if Mueller's not going to go all the way back to the beginning of this, to what brought on the FISA warrant, then you're not doing a complete investigation. And when Mueller was testifying after he was done, it was so horrifically bad, but it was the only way that something that fake, that empty was going to end with that botched testimony. I mean, it was bad. It was a very bad day. And the problem is that in order to change something that is this big, you have to have a massive, massive political will collectively by the American people to change it. And you don't. And, we said this about a number of things over the years. If you're on the left, well, all right, if this is how the game is played, then don't be shocked if somebody on the right and their Justice Department is going to behave the same. I don't want that to happen. But if this is the game and this is acceptable, then tell me who's going to stop it. Tell me who's going to change it.
Well, that's what happens in a banana republic.
Yep.
It becomes
It becomes the norm
for the party in power to go after the party not in power and individuals not in power and prosecute them and put out propaganda and lies and attempt to set them up. This was what happens, in a
and it
third
goes,
world
it goes from
socialist economy.
It goes from being accepted to expected.
Yeah.
And once we reach that point, then, which we may have. I can't tell you because I guess we'll learn after the next presidential election, maybe. I don't know.
And the banana republic, the banana republic culture that exists now in liberals that goes into law enforcement where they didn't give a damn about what their job was and what they were supposed to do.
Right.
They didn't care about actually enforcing the law. They were attempting to push Comey, Strzok.
Yeah.
All were attempting to push a particular political narrative because they disliked one of the candidates and they forgot what their sworn duty was. So both were justifiably let go.
You look at the, you look at those two agents that were reviewing that white paper that was handed over, and with the whole Sussman thing, and they were going, man, something is wrong with the person that wrote this. Something is deeply wrong. Yep. And they took it to the brass, and the brass ignored it. That's how things live. Well, don't worry about it. We've got it from here, and it lived on for years.
866-90 Red Eye.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Like the chief financial officer of any company, you have to be concerned about rising costs, especially without increases in revenue. Trying to reduce costs, let alone make sense of them, can be a complicated task. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. A penny saved could be $1,000 earned. Saving just 1 penny per mile over 100,000 miles driven annually will deliver $1,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Getting some input from people saying, well, Trump should sue. He tried suing the Hillary campaign about a year and a half ago, and it was thrown out pretty quick.
Yeah.
And what he was suing for was because you've got to sue for damages.
Right.
At the federal level. And so what he was saying was his legal fees in order to defend the lie or the defamation from the Hillary campaign, but it was thrown out quickly and he never refiled again.
Right.
So, and when the judge dismissed it, I never was clear on why the judge did so.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump may try again, but just so you know, he has already attempted to sue the Hillary campaign. And this is after Durham came out with more information.
Yeah.
When Durham came out with some of what the testimony was at that point of what he had learned, that's when Trump sued. And I think it was thrown out in 3 months. It
wasn't long.
It wasn't long before they threw it out and said, no, you don't have standing or you don't have a case. I don't remember specifically what the reason from the judge was or whether we just didn't find out, why the judge did it, whether he just dismissed it. Now, a lot of legal experts said probably doesn't have a chance.
It was believed to be a long shot from the beginning.
Yeah. So, you would think that now it's so clear, or if you were found guilty in a court of law. On a criminal level, then
I think if the Sussman thing had gone differently, then I think he might have a better case, maybe. Because it was about that time, they were all kind of converging together, and you and I talked about it. They were probably hoping to gain some leverage off of what was being learned by the charges against Sussman at the time. That wasn't over yet. But had that case gone differently, it might have given some leverage to the Trump team, but I'm not sure. I'd have to have an attorney break that down for me, and because it could still be a long shot nonetheless.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just an update for those asking, why doesn't Trump sue? He did sue. It was thrown out last September. Okay, it lasted about 5 months in the court. The judge said it was frivolous and would not allow him to refile again. So Trump appealed, and in part of that, not part of that appeal, but the original judge sanctioned him for almost $1 million, stating that, because he had sued other people and said, you're not, basically, I could be wrong, but the judge seemed to be indicating that Trump was throwing a broad brush everywhere instead of being specific. What's the specific damages and why should this person pay it? Now, it's still under appeal with the 11th Circuit. So just if people were wondering.
Yeah.
And I guess we shall see. But again, I haven't seen a lot of analysis since the appeal. Or I haven't seen a lot since it was thrown out last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't seem to be a lot of legal analysis on the specifics of it. And that's what it comes down to in any suit like that.
Yeah, you're going to have to demonstrate the damages.
Right.
Directly.
Now, calling it frivolous as if I'm on the appeals court, I'm saying, well, I know what happened here. They did create an enterprise, and you and I had talked about this, and we talked about, remember, how Trump, how he was filing the lawsuit, and maybe that's what the judge found frivolous, because for some reason it's unacceptable on the federal level to file basically a RICO lawsuit. Because remember he was filing a RICO civil lawsuit,
right? Based on the enterprise,
right? Based on the enterprise that was created, that there was an enterprise created. And when we read the letter of the law, remember we said, does he have
right? You might have something
right?
here.
Does he have something here?
Yeah.
And the judge called that attempt frivolous. And you and I said, well, why would it be? Because it seemed to be the civil part of the RICO law seemed to, from the wording of the law, I remember at the time when you and I read it, seemed to be saying there's an enterprise to destroy you in a number of ways. It can be politically, monetarily, whatever. Now, he was looking for the money from it. He was looking actually for the money because politically, he won. So you couldn't say, okay, she destroyed me because I lost the election based on the lie. But from what we know, he went after lawyer fees. Now, in the federal level, that may be frivolous for a reason that I'm not familiar with. But when you and I both read it, we went, well, the law actually the law seems to back that Trump has a possibility here. And again, I don't know the precedent. And the judge also said, well, precedent doesn't allow this. I'd like to see what that precedent is. What is the precedent that they use for it? Because it did seem like, the RICO, this is a RICO not criminal act. This is a part of the civil law, which says if there is an enterprise created to harm you, that you can file a civil lawsuit.
Well, and I don't know, was the judge thinking that, look, because this is why I brought up the Sussman thing. Had Sussman been convicted for lying to the FBI?
Not at that point, no. Not when he filed.
But if he had been,
well, he had not convicted, but he hadn't been charged.
I
don't think it was. He charged? He would have been charged.
No, he was, because we talked about it then.
Yeah, because he would have been charged.
And we wondered if because we were learning more from Durham based on the charges against Sussman. If that had already played out and Sussman were found guilty, I wonder if the judge would have looked at it differently and said, okay, it's been proven that they lied to the FBI. And this was, part of that enterprise that was created. But at that point, it hadn't been done. And eventually, in fact, Sussman was acquitted.
I guess my question would be, the judge said it's frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by looking at and you may say, well, he hasn't been convicted yet. Yes, there was an enterprise because you proved that enterprise with the dossier that it was not true, that it was, and it's up to them to prove that it's, if they're going to accuse you of something, if they're going to defame you on something, the people that are defaming you somehow have to prove it, don't they? Now, but technically it wasn't a defamation lawsuit. That's the problem. It technically wasn't a defamation lawsuit.
Right.
It was a RICO lawsuit. You formed an enterprise. There was an enterprise created, which would be the campaign. It would be Perkins Coie, Payne Perkins Coie. It would be Sussman. It would be that enterprise of the people in the campaign with the law firm that started that particular lie. Or for the dossier, it would be the same thing. You have paid money to create, because enterprises are created all the time by paying people to be part of your enterprise to do damage to somebody else. I mean, it seemed to, I will say this. I would ask the same questions we're asking now to the judge, and I'd like to hear what the answer is. And I'd like to see how they view it, under appeal. That why is it frivolous? You may say, no, you don't meet the standing. It doesn't seem frivolous. Why is it unless it's frivolous legally, which I guess everything would have to be frivolous legally, but I don't understand why. Everyone, and you knew back then, you knew that everything was false when he filed it. We knew it at the time. Because that's why we said in the RICO law, we went, ooh, this is really interesting. You've created an enterprise to destroy me. And it's not specific in the law.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see that, I go, why would you call it frivolous legally unless there's a precedent that exists that addresses this kind of thing, where a politician defames another politician or creates, because it wasn't just defaming. It wasn't just saying something. It was creating an enterprise to create a lie, to finance a lie, to create the lie, to sell the lie to others. So it actually wasn't the defamation of the lie that he was suing for. It was the fact that she had created an enterprise to destroy him, and he should be able to recoup some damages, especially like for the legal fees that he had because of this. Mm-hmm. That to me doesn't seem frivolous. If I'm missing something, I want to know what I'm missing in my analysis or my questions as to why is it frivolous. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm doing this all off the top of my head.
I'm trying to
Right.
think of what might have been going through the mind of the judge, and that is, have you proven it to be frivolous, or have you proven it to be an enterprise, rather, outside of what might be the norm? Well, it's the Clintons. Everything they do is an enterprise in nature. And because the sophistication of it. But does it go beyond, is the judge trying to say, and I don't know, I would have to have the judge answer this. Are you trying to say because it doesn't go beyond the normal sophistication of a modern day actions of any campaign?
I remember
especially a Clinton campaign.
I remember when it was talked about on abortion protests, going after the abortion protesters criminally with the RICO Act, because that was an enterprise created to help limit and or destroy abortion clinics. And that was, I believe that was, I can't remember, but I believe that was thrown out because that precedent would have been set, because the RICO is supposed to be used against organized crime, and they were implying on the criminal level that pro-lifers were part of organized crime. And they're like, you can't make that leap. But on the civil part of the RICO Act, it doesn't have to be mob-related, is what it was explained to me when I was when I read it and then searched out, legal voices that I trusted. But you didn't see a lot of analysis on that when it happened, legal analysis. Will be interesting to see, but just wanted to address that because some people were asking, why can't he sue? He should sue now. He has, and it's an appeal now. So, but it has been ruled so far as a frivolous lawsuit, and that I don't understand.
Right
now, it's a unique way. It's unique. You and I both said that. We went, whoa, RICO Act. This isn't a defamation lawsuit. This is a RICO Act lawsuit. She created an enterprise to destroy me. And when you read the actual laws we did at that point, we went, both you and I looked at each other going, wow, does he actually have something here?
Right.
The judge said
or
he
is
did.
the judge saying, well, no, she created an enterprise to get elected, and all is fair in love and war and elections.
Maybe. Because if that's a standard that'll lie, I mean, what if a campaign lies about you? It's an enterprise that's lying together about you to destroy you.
The enterprise, the goal of the enterprise, the entire goal, purpose is to win.
Is to destroy you politically.
Yeah, is to destroy the opponent.
All right, maybe that's it.
I don't know. Maybe.
That would at least that might be consistent, because that's why you don't have lawsuits all the time being filed.
Right. He lied about me in American politics. Get out of my courtroom.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Where is this going? The IRS has removed the entire investigative team from its multi-year tax investigation of Hunter Biden, and a whistleblower who raised concerns about the handling of the case is claiming that the move was clearly retaliatory, according to a Monday report. For the New York Post, the whistleblower's attorneys told Congress that the removal was on the order of the Department of Justice.
So you do away with the entire team, including the whistleblower.
Right.
That's See, it won't look like retaliation if we get rid of everybody. The whole idea of a whistleblower system or protection within the process is to prevent retaliation. This would be, in my opinion, the whistleblowers' lawyers won't have any problem demonstrating retaliation here. I don't know how it works with government employees, but if this were the private sector, that would be, they would just be asking, on the IRS side, well, how much do we make the check out for? Because that's clear. Well, just throw everybody out. Oh, it wasn't targeted at him,
right,
or her, the whistleblower. I think it's a him.
Now, nobody's been fired. They're just not investigating.
No, they have, their position has been changed.
Right. Now, does this mean another group of agents is taking over the investigation?
They form a new one. They form a new and call it something different. Remove the access and everything else.
In the back of my mind, I keep hearing special prosecutor, special prosecutor, special prosecutor, special prosecutor.
Well, if you want to, here's the thing, if they're going to do that, if there's going to be a special prosecutor assigned, it moves the spotlight strictly over to the president. I mean, it will be full on. Then again, he won't be standing there because now he goes out the side door at the White House. He just ignores the media, continues to ignore the media. He doesn't have to answer your questions, Jack, or Jill, or whoever's shouting the questions. All due respect to the First Lady.
I'm sorry. That's what got me laughing.
But that's how it goes.
Yep.
Just let it go, and then they can just park this thing in a special prosecutor's office for years.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want, if you can't listen live overnight on one of our great radio stations. All right, this is interesting. An anti-capitalist coffee shop in Canada is closing after a year in business, the owner announced, citing the lack of generational wealth and seed capital from ethically bankrupt sources as a reason for being unable to continue to operate the business. The Toronto Cafe, the anarchist, I'm sorry. Why am I even reading this? Because I must. It's entertaining.
Pay what you want to pay at the anarchist.
Right. The Toronto Cafe, the anarchist, opened in March of 2022 and previously described itself as an anti-capitalist, anti-colonial cafe, shop, and radical community place on stolen land.
Well, as business models go, this one is right out of the success playbook.
It will close its doors on May 30th. I have a feeling John Tapper did not have a visit to the anarchist.
You said Tapper. I think you mean Taffer.
What did I say, Tapper?
Tapper, yeah.
Did I say Jack? Did I say Jake Tapper?
I don't know.
Okay. John Taffer.
Yeah.
Jake Tapper.
And Jake Tapper. Tapper and Taffer tonight on CNN.
You're like, why would Tapper be going to the anarchist?
That would be a great duo to put on CNN, though.
Could you imagine John Taffer sitting out in his SUV with, he's got like the chef and the bartender out there looking with the cameras inside the anarchist.
Yeah,
But you can't run a place this way.
Right. Yeah, they're doing their recon and screaming, going, "Oh my gosh! I don't even want to get out of the car. I'm not going in there. This guy's crazy." Anti-capitalist. The
way you're running this place, it's anarchy. Well, we're the anarchists.
Yeah, we know. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for that. We appreciate you noticing. Thank you. That's a compliment.
I can see John Taffer's face getting all red. It's like,
right. Get out of here, you commie. Yeah. Anti-capitalist. Listen, the anti-capitalist is going out of business. Seriously, you didn't get that from the Babylon Bee? Are you sure? Look at the source.
But they're anti-capitalist, anti-colonial cafe. It's been an amazing experience connecting with so many great community members, sparking desperately needed debate, raising the blood pressures of conservatives. That includes you, anarcho-capitalists and libertarians, fulfilling the dream of most service workers by not having to tolerate the presence of professional class traders, military, and pigs. For those people that don't know, pigs is a 60s reference to cops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And experimenting with living and working in ways that don't enthusiastically embrace capitalism. You're out of business. What are you talking about?
We hate capitalism. Are they celebrating this, by the way?
I think they're celebrating the closing as being a great experience of not making it. Therefore, it's anti-capitalism. And therefore, they've succeeded in failing.
And proving that capitalism doesn't work. Tell me where I'm wrong. Oh, my. Oh. Seriously. Wow. An anti-capitalist business is shutting its doors. Take your money out of here. Well, okay, I will. But I want my coffee first.
Really doesn't make sense. We're anti-capitalist, so we're opening up a business that will fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that proves our anti-capitalism and that we're morally right in this.
See, told you capitalism doesn't work.
This is maybe this is in Fox News wrote this. In an effort to make coffee accessible to everyone and to enforce the idea that the enterprise is not a capitalist venture.
Who doesn't have access to coffee?
To
make coffee accessible to everyone. Coffee has never been more accessible.
Wait, let me just finish the sentence here and then get to the analysis. In an effort to make coffee accessible to everyone and to enforce the idea that the enterprise is not a capitalist venture, the shop had a pay-what-you-can model that was subsidized by pricier drinks, according to the cafe website.
Right.
Then the next sentence. The model was evidently not successful.
Well, who was going in there going, I want one of the pricier drinks because I want to support the other people that don't want to pay for anything.
The cafe came under criticism when it first opened, as critics said it was hypocritical to charge high prices for inexpensive coffee and drinks.
Well, I mean, the anti-capitalists that you're inviting into your anti-capitalist business are looking at the menu then going, whoa, what's that at the top? What's that $19 mocha? What's that, dude? Pay what you want to pay.
The owner ended his statement with, F the rich, F the police, F the state, F the colonial death camp we call Canada. All right, well, that part's true.
Colonial death camp. The CDC. Yeah. That's on his way out the door. F everybody.
The
Wow.
colonial death camp we call Canada, because that
Colonial death camp.
Then again, I did see. I was going through the channels the other day, and it was Michael Moore's best and most accurate movie. Canadian Bacon was on, and it was the part where the Canadian national anthem's playing, and they're all sitting there drinking beers at a hockey game across the border, and going, "Whoa, we're not gonna what? You show your loyalty to a maple leaf?" And it's like they're throwing all these insults at Canada,
right.
and nobody's paying attention. And all of a sudden, John Candy's drinking his beer. He goes, "This Canadian beer sucks," and then the whole place goes, the whole arena goes silent, and the hockey players stop playing.
Yeah.
And the Canadian hockey players come jump because it was Canada against the United States, some type of match.
Right.
The Canadian players come up right over the glass and start beating the hell out of John Candy. And I just had to watch that portion of it.
Yeah. Make coffee accessible. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Pretty much every employer gives it away for free.
The shop,
I mean, you have to be employed.
The shop also did sell, they're open until the 30th, sells merchandise highlighting anti-capitalist views.
Okay, can I pay what I want for that merchandise?
Oh, you see my anti-capitalist T-shirt that I found.
What do you got? What does it say?
SVB, Silicon Valley Bank.
Bank Run 2023.
Bank Run 2023. It's got people running.
Yeah,
like
people
it's
running on it like it's one of those little running events.
Yes, I always try to find these unique shirts.
Yeah,
that I only wear when I'm in the studio here.
Right.
And there's no cameras, but I still wear them anyway. We're doomed.
We're doomed.
It was one of the first ones I wore. What is the one? Stop whining, work harder, whatever it is.
Yeah, your Taylor Swift shirt the other day. That was nice. Interesting color for a guy, but it was nice. It was a nice shirt.
Well, I had to
show your support for Taylor.
Well, I didn't have my Maren Morris T-shirt, so I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we're getting a little bit too deep into country controversies.
Yeah.
I heard she got some award the other day and was just going, Maren Morris is all the, pro-trans stuff and all that.
Yeah.
I know a guy who played guitar for her earlier in his career. He was a huge fan of the show when he lived here. And
yeah.
When I don't know if he still listens, but because I don't know if he's still doing the band stuff, but when he'd finish a gig, he used to listen to us all the time. Guy met him one time. He told me when he was playing for her, when she was just local here in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, she's going to make it. She did.
Yeah.
And but when I met this guy, I had seen his band play, another band that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up and I just said, hey. And he actually played in a band at the Independent Bob had a party when Bob lived here at his house, and the regular band canceled. So this band that's quite well known, and Taylor was a part of it, was coming to the party. They said, well, the band will play. They're coming to the party anyway. And they're a great band. And I went up and said, man, you guys are really good. My name's Gary McNamara. And he goes, tell me where I'm wrong. And I'm like, oh, wow. He listens.
So the band stopped and then started a debate.
No. But
way to go, Gary.
But I just
we wanted music.
Just a little. Maren Morris is so clueless. But that's for another day.
Yeah.
But I just love this. His statement ended with, F the rich, F the police, F the state, F the colonial death camp we call Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Canada, why didn't you support the anarchist?
Right. What's wrong? Man, that would have been my free coffee every day. Pay what you want. Okay. I don't want to pay anything.
Think about this. The owner of the anarchist has to despise Tim Hortons.
Of course. Yeah. No, everybody's going there. they don't mind paying whatever they charge for a quality product. They enjoy their time there. It's legendary. I saw some folks on a road trip, and they had been a couple of times on this same road trip over the years. They had passed by this Tim Hortons, and they said, we're going to make time for it now. On this one, we're going to stop. We don't really have the time, but we're going to make the time. And they did. And big coffee drinkers, the whole thing.
Here's the problem with the anarchist. You probably shouldn't be going into any type of business, even if you can't describe the economic philosophy that you're confused with the economic philosophy that's supposed to drive it, because you're anti-capitalist, yet you're charging really high prices for some coffee drinks to subsidize free coffee for others.
Yeah.
Which, in essence, is a capitalist move to begin with.
Well, here's the thing.
But probably you shouldn't open any business, even a commie business, based on hate and rage.
And the hate for making profits.
Well, yes. But hate and rage in general, just be sitting there and I hate everybody.
Yeah.
Come to my coffee shop and drink coffee, and we're going to talk about how we hate everything in our society. Probably you're not going to have a wide customer base.
And I'm also guessing they never hosted a coffee with a cop.
No, that's a great point. I don't. The anarchists never.
Well, because if they put the poster out for them, they would have titled it "Coffee with a Pig," and I'm not sure that a police officer would have shown up to that.
Probably not.
Yeah, I'm guessing no.
No.
Make coffee accessible. Like there's a problem. This is the problem in the world. Not everybody has access to coffee. Look, you can say not everybody has access to, healthy food or whatever the liberals have thrown out, these food deserts, all those, things that we've talked about over the years. Mm-hmm. Oh, these are the problems. This is the problem. Blah, 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 blah. They're hitting the drive-through. Would it change if you had a health food store? If you had a healthy grocery store that was affordable in the neighborhood, would it change people's diet?
No.
No, it would not.
No.
And, it's not accessible. The problem is it's not accessible. Come on.
Unfortunately, we will not have. Well, I was thinking it would be great to go, you and I, to walk into the Anarchist with an American flag shirt on.
Yeah.
But
back the blue hat.
Or actually, how about an American flag and a Canadian hat, or American flag hat and a Canadian shirt, because they hate both the same.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
See which one infuriates the owner more.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is, this guy opening this place with such rage and hatred would be exactly the kind of thing, if I was in college, I would organize my college buddies to go into the place and taunt in a very subtle way.
Oh, yeah.
The way we used to the Lyndon LaRouche people when I went to Buffalo State University now, not college. They
they decided years after you were gone, maybe we're going to bump it up to a university.
We're going to go from a college to a university. Mm-hmm. So I'm a university graduate, not just a college.
No. You were there when it was a college.
I'm grandfathering myself in.
Well, you're the appropriate age for doing that.
I think it was a better school back then than the wokeness that embraces a lot of the school today.
Yeah. Yeah, this coffee shop was as bad as my idea of having tequila with a cop. Never took off. It never took off.
Tequila with a cop in a car.
Yeah. Never took off for some reason.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
In Trinidad Radio, he's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. The one thing, the owner of the Anarchists now, the worst thing is now he's probably got to go work for the man.
He's going to have to work for the man or take benefits from the government.
Well, that's fine.
Which, by the way, the person gets as a Canadian citizen. Don't they get the health care? I mean, he gets the health care.
Yeah.
What are you complaining about?
Right. So.
Yeah, but I get it, but I don't want it. Do you use it? Yeah, but I don't like it. Making coffee accessible. Just give me a break. Make tequila accessible.
Coffee is a right. Oh, wait a minute.
Huh?
Wait, hold it. That was in WKRP.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Dr. Johnny Fever?
Right? No, yeah.
He almost went on strike. Yeah, he said, because coffee is supposed to be a right in radio.
In radio, yeah.
You know? I remember when I first got into radio, $1 a week, but all the coffee you can drink.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that college radio? I'm sorry, university radio?
I will say this. Coffee has always been accessible if you're in radio. I don't know any place where I ever worked in radio that didn't have free coffee available for you.
Yeah, no, we've always had. It's not always great coffee, but yeah. I'm drinking some right now.
Yeah,
from the kitchen.
I'm trying to think of any place where it was not that I ever worked, and there was always free coffee in radio.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So we are the true anarchists. Coffee is accessible here.
That's right, and we pay what we want, which is nothing.
Or what it's worth. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
Gary McNamara and Eric Harley taking your calls. 1-866-90-RED-EYE.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. So here we go. I said this yesterday. I can't believe this story exists today because I really never thought I would see it this soon. But it was just an off-the-cuff remark when we were talking about what's going on with illegal immigration and migrants and the major Democratic cities where migrants are, being sent by bus to the destination of their choice.
Mm-hmm.
They choose it. And I said, man, will there come a time when Democratic cities will actually say, it's time that we get rid of our sanctuary city designation?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know it would be hours after. There's the headline. Eric Adams wants to revoke New York City's sanctuary city status amid massive migrant influx. As New York City deals with the massive influx of illegal immigrants, Mayor Adams on Thursday said he was asking a judge to revisit the city's sanctuary city law. The law of sanctuary city was in place long before I became mayor. I'm following the law. As a law enforcement person, we follow the law. We are now in court today asking a judge to revisit the law to deal with this humanitarian crisis because even when they decided to put into place that law, no one ever thought that they would be dealing with a humanitarian crisis of this proportion.
Why not? The idea was anybody and everybody.
Yeah. The statement comes as hotels in upstate New York have canceled pre-booked hotel rooms and booted homeless veterans to make space for Adams' migrants. The Crossroads Hotel abruptly canceled a Florida couple's 30-room reservation made for their wedding made a few months ago to accommodate migrants. And they talk about the other people that had hotel rooms planned. Adams signed an emergency declaration last Wednesday ahead of Title 42's expiration, suspending the city's right to shelter rules that find private rooms for illegal immigrants immediately, according to CBS News. So there you go. New York wants a judge to revoke New York City's sanctuary city status. What does that mean if you do? Are you going to refuse them then?
Well, what would change? What are you going to do at that point? Because it's also Adams that has been asking the Biden administration for help. And Biden's like, sorry, can't hear you. I went out the side door.
And as the administration and others say, oh, we're not having riots at the border. Well, nobody was saying there was except you last week. Remember, we were saying, why is it the Democrats saying, be prepared for chaos and riots and everything else? We had stated what's actually going on. They're not trying to stop it. What they've done in preparing for Title 42 is open up more avenues where they're telling people, here's how you get in the country. Listen, please pay attention to us.
Fastest way to get in.
Here's how you get in free. Here's what you say. Here's what we allow. We allow migrants to come in for asylum for this, and this. So say these things, and then get in line, and we'll process you right through and into the country.
Yeah.
So even if it's not mass riots, as they were stating, at the border, this doesn't change anything because there's going to be a continuation and even more busloads going to New York.
Oh, yeah.
And even in Chicago. And so I see this here in the New York Post, Glenn Reynolds' column, Democrats throwing black voters under the bus for a new progressive agenda. Sorry, black voters, you're being replaced. The Democrats just aren't into you anymore, They've got a new constituency they like better, and you're being thrown under the bus. Blacks in Chicago are not happy about it. We don't care. We don't want them here. Send them back. Some of the quotes from some of the city's black residents. Those are some of the reactions of black citizens from Chicago's South Side, which went 97% for Biden. This is a reaction to the importation of hundreds of migrants from Mexico and Central America. The Chicago Sun-Times was horrified, accusing them of sounding much like an ugly America First rally for Donald Trump. One man even held up a sign that read, Build the Wall 24. That image alone is certain to put a smug smile on the faces of many MAGA types. That's what the Chicago Sun-Times wrote. One activist, Natasha Dunn, was unfazed. Quote, it's a slap in the face that we as citizens of the United States of America do not have the resources and support, but you're going to bring people who are not citizens here in our community, in our buildings that we pay taxes for, that you took away from us. Talking about using schools that have been closed down. Public housing already in short supply is now being diverted from black citizens in Chicago to migrants and illegal immigrants. Is it really surprising Chicago's blacks are unhappy? But when you're a pushover, you get taken for granted. And when your community goes 97% for Democrats, you're a pushover. Now that they have you nailed down, they're busy importing a new batch of future voters, and if that makes your life worse, well, tough. If they're not afraid of you anymore, you get nothing. That's the Chicago way, and that's the Democratic Party way. For basically my entire lifetime, Democrats have courted the black vote and promoted black issues, but in the last few years, that's changed. The Democratic Party is now run by well-off, mostly white, woke people whose interests diverge rather sharply from those of the party's black constituents. Black voters want jobs. Democrats want to import illegal competition that will drive wages down and make those jobs harder to get. Blacks want safe streets. Woke ideologues, who generally live somewhere else, push deep policing initiatives that increase urban crime and disorder while killing off businesses that provide employment, something that's happening in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Portland, and elsewhere. These policies are less popular with the people who actually have to live with the resulting crime and urban decay than those that actually promote them. Woke white ideologues also champion green policies that hike gasoline, utility, and food prices. They don't see these consequences as problems, but as features because they want people to eat less and use less energy. But those rising costs are a brutal burden on people barely getting by as it is. The other big woke issue, trans rights, isn't especially popular with black voters either and not very relevant to their daily lives. And, of course, even at the top level of national politics, black voters could be forgiven for thinking the Democratic Party is kind of, racist. Just look at the disproportionate attention paid to trumped-up ethics charges against black Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. When wealthy white woman Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg traveled at donor expense more than any other justice, and her husband's law firm represented clients before the Supreme Court, there was no national outcry.
No, in fact, it was quite the opposite. The left was hailing her as the GOAT.
Well, it's what we started saying, that the identity politics, and people forget about this, that the identity politics started against blacks. Mm-hmm. The modern identity politics movement of the Democratic Party was of black conservatives. Number one, it was at Clarence Thomas, you remember, when he was in, and then black conservative talk show host.
Right.
I remember when that was going on at that point. And there was the thing that all blacks must think alike. How racist is that?
Right.
You can't be autonomous. You can't have your own thoughts. You have to abide by what the Democratic Party tells you to do, and if you don't, then you're not really black.
Right.
And they still do the same thing today, and as Glenn Reynolds points out here in his column, it's being run by white ideologues who are telling blacks what they should think.
Right. Yep. I mean, over and over again. I mean, we see the demonstration of this play out over and over again on the left. Oh, by the way, Chicago, hope you're looking forward to the big convention next summer. The DNC will be right there.
Well, it's something we've also talked about, school choice. The black families love. Everybody loves them, but black families love them. But Democrats want to do everything possible to ensure that blacks don't get a solid education.
You know, one of the things we've talked about with this huge run on the border is that this summer, like with every summer, but especially next summer, there's going to be a huge rush. So I don't know what you do in a city like Chicago as they come upon their convention there in Chicago, and the whole thing on the border crisis is not going to change, and quite possibly, in fact, likely, is going to be worse, which means it'll be worse in Chicago.
No, you're right. But we talk about it, school choice. You know, who was it who fought for blacks to have, in the inner city, to have the same Second Amendment rights, law-abiding blacks, as people do in the suburbs? The Republican Party. The Democratic Party was doing everything to kill school choice and to kill the ability of blacks in the inner city to have the same Second Amendment rights to protect their lives and their property in a high-crime area as anybody else.
Yep.
And the Democrats and the liberal black leadership was doing everything to deny them school choice and the ability to protect themselves, self-defense. And as we always stated, we've stated this for decades now on this show, if they don't care about your education and your kids' education, and they don't care about you having the ability to protect your life, then you tell me exactly what they care for. But for decades after I know I first said that, blacks continued to support the Democratic Party that is now working against every single interest of blacks. in the inner city.
They don't care.
They don't
care about the problem. They've never cared about the crime.
Nope.
They don't care about your concerns over illegal immigration. They don't care about any of it.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The one thing I wonder is, and you never know, the public is so on edge right now, you just don't know what will set them off. I'm still surprised at the whole Bud Light thing. I can't believe that is what really set off the public. It's almost like the public has been sitting back waiting for a moment to go after the insanity of the radical liberal transgender activist movement. Who would have thought it would have been that ad that would be the thing that would send people over the top? And so it may be in the cities over the next year, because this isn't going to stop anytime soon. The administration is not. They want to more rapidly accelerate illegal immigrants becoming migrants, legalizing them, and letting them stay in the country for 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 years before a court date ever comes up, and ensuring, because it's not just Texas and Florida and other states, saying, hey, you want a bus ticket somewhere else. The federal government is also flying them in places, as we have found out, as New York found out. It wasn't a big deal when Biden was doing it. It only became a big deal when DeSantis and Abbott started doing it in Florida and Texas. But it was being done anyway. But there's so many now. Where is this the thing that will, we saw Hispanics make that shift. We've seen women be ignored now by the Democratic Party over the radical transgender activist movement, where, the Democratic Party is now rejecting biological women and saying the biological men can dictate what a woman is. Well, you're fracturing your female base. You're fracturing, as we've seen, the Hispanic base that they had is the base of black voters about to be split.
I think quite possibly, and it will be at least, I don't know how long it would last if that is the case, but it will be on full display in all the major cities, including Chicago, who is hosting the 24 DNC. Their national convention is going to be there when the problem is only going to be worse.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here at Red Eye Radio. All right, so yesterday, right about this time, too, we were talking about what the strategy might be of the DeSantis campaign. Nothing yet that he's going to announce this week, but a couple of weeks ago, this was the week that people said he might announce. Now, there's no indication that he will, but it'll be interesting to see if he does. But this is a political article. Why the DeSantis Brain Trust thinks that it can actually beat Trump. So that's what we were asking the other day. What are they thinking inside the campaign, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Do they have a legitimate point? Are they being delusional? As a lot of candidates are. A lot of candidates come in thinking that they have a chance. In all likelihood, Chris Christie, as we said yesterday, is not going to be the next nominee. Probably neither will Rick Perry. DeSantis, yes, he has the best chance. But it's interesting because they actually, the DeSantis campaign, invited this political reporter to come talk to them. And he said, and so he did. He said, and here's what they said here: aides working for for DeSantis don't want their phenom to be judged before he even steps into the batter box. To stretch the metaphor, that's why they invited me to Tallahassee. DeSantis' high command recognizes that the catnip for junkies national polling has shifted towards Trump this year, but they believe they retain a fundamental advantage. Quote, everyone knows the majority of the Republican Party wants to move on. Said Ganera Peck, DeSantis' gubernatorial campaign manager and closest aide. From what they are getting, the incoming they're fielding, as they write it here, from donors, activists, and well-wishers tells a very different story from the one that comes with each week's spate of Trump lead grows national surveys. There's one other factor that has DeSantis advisors convinced that they remain well-positioned, Trump eagerness to kill their campaign now. He knows the greatest threat is Ron DeSantis and that he was coming and coming strongly at some point, said David Abrams, a governor spokesperson, by way of explaining why Trump has wielded nicknames, endorsements, and organizing to smother that campaign before it even gets underway. To this end, there was nothing the DeSantis team was keener to convey than that he has survived the preemptive onslaught and that there's a disconnect between his appeal in the early nominating states and the grumbling from fickle party elites and a media they believe remains hooked on the Trump show. They also believe he's not getting credit for the conservative victories he has piled up in the just concluded legislative session. There's truth to all of that. It's also still early days, but DeSantis is facing considerable challenge in a compressed timetable. It's a challenge that owes in part to his own deficiencies and in part to how Trump has transformed the Republican Party. First, why the DeSantis team remains optimistic. They surveyed 3 kickoff states, Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, in the days after Trump was indicted in Manhattan last month. This was as Trump was getting his national polling bump and after months of the former president's attacks on DeSantis. The governor still enjoyed a higher net favorability than Trump among likely Republican voters in all 3 states. According to the research, a sign that the GOP electorate remains very much open to his candidacy. Iowa Republicans feel unfavorably towards DeSantis, perhaps most notable in the conservative-dominated caucuses. DeSantis was viewed favorably by nearly 80% of those who call themselves very conservative. Trump's unpopularity was even higher in New Hampshire, where independents can participate in either party's primary, and in South Carolina. The surveys were analyzed by Ryan Tyson, DeSantis' pollster, who has a reputation for pinpoint accuracy in his native Florida. DeSantis and his wife, Casey, are their own chief strategist, as anybody in Florida politics will share within 10 seconds of the topic coming up. Outside the family, though, most of his top advisors were sitting at the table when I visited. It's a capable and highly committed team, more true believer than commission-hunting mercenary, and the aides were buoyed by their growing organization, which will include Sam Cooper, their political director, and others. They go through all these other names there that most people wouldn't recognize, so I'm not going to go through them. But they say are all political experts.
Yeah.
And just goes on to, we talked about yesterday how DeSantis is one of the things he's doing in the Republican Party is local fundraising that Trump isn't doing. He's going and raising funds for other people. I would say this. When he announces, if you see a bump within a week and it's 10 points or more, then he's in. I mean, then it's going to be a race. If you see that kind of movement.
Sure. Yeah.
If he comes out strong and then does rallies and then does advertising, the thing is, how strong does he come out against Trump? He's not going to be Trump, because a lot of people think, well, the only way you beat Trump is by being Trump, and
I don't see that happening.
I don't believe DeSantis thinks that. I'm really amazed because, as you have seen, normally it's and I'm not insulting them by saying it, but they are, normally it's the bottom feeders who will attack, and the bottom feeders really haven't attacked.
Yeah.
They haven't gone after Trump.
Right.
And it's like, then what's your point? Eventually, in some way, you have to go after Trump, and you have to go after Trump hard. How does DeSantis do it? What is the tone in doing it?
And what is the timing?
What is the timing? Or does he believe that he can just slowly put out that message of, look what I did in Florida. I'm a conservative. And you've seen, one of the things that, it's interesting. What's going to be interesting here is we are going to find out probably in a lot of the different polls, once DeSantis and everybody is in, you're going to find out in 2023-24 just how conservative versus populist the Republican Party has become.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's the makeup? What's the ratio? One of the key things that happened in Tallahassee yesterday is Brian Griffin, the press secretary for Governor DeSantis, resigned and said he's moving on. And here's the quote: "I'm stepping away from this role to pursue other avenues of helping to deliver the governor's success to our country." So it looks like he may be the press secretary or play some top role there in the campaign. Also, they have moved offices and in Tallahassee, the campaign, and so that's the question is now how it just looks imminent. Everybody's looking at it saying, okay, there's no way he's not going to announce soon. The question is when. I could see him announcing the Friday of Memorial Day weekend as we honor those who paid the ultimate price for our freedoms. We need to remember the nation that we are. We need to remember the people that we are. We need to step away from the social media. We need to consider and remember our everyday exchanges as a society. That's who we are. While we have a lot of work to do, and that's why I want to run, don't let the media shape this country anymore. Just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he's got to promote the fact that that I had my successes in Florida. Mm-hmm. These are the things that I have done. Mm-hmm. I have support of people, and because he's going to be criticized, he's already been criticized as being a rhino. And if it was a rhino, obviously he won Miami-Dade County. He's got to be a rhino. Democrats aren't going to vote for somebody who's a conservative, right? And that's what they're trying to say. He is too broad-based. Actually, what the Republican Party needs is to be more broad-based, but that will be a criticism, I think, thrown at DeSantis, and DeSantis needs to come back at that point and say, no, look at the polls, people like conservative values. The people agree with me on the issues. They agree with the Republican Party on the issues, but unfortunately, they disagree in the polling shows with certain people that are promoting those issues. And our goal is to win.
Trump converted a lot of Democrats. You know, you could make that if you're going to make that point based on your position of supporting Trump, he must be a rhino because he's got Democrats supporting him. A number of people who were on the left ended up, whether they voted for him in 2016 or not, ended up standing behind President Trump. And what it shows you is that on the issues, the country, I don't know to what extent is changing, but certainly a number of people are changing, and a number of Democrats are changing.
Well, on the issues, it's dominant. It's almost landslide where Republicans stand versus
Democrats.
Democrats.
Has been for a long time, yeah. They just didn't vote that way. I mean, it was landslide after the debates between Romney and Obama. On the issues, it was a landslide.
The thing is with the Republican Party, and people go, well, the Republican Party split. The Republican Party has two strong candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like them or not, this isn't I'm not having a discussion on whether you like, I'm just saying they're two dominant personalities. When was the last time you had that in a Republican Party? Besides Trump coming in and being dominant, who was dominant against Trump in that? Ted Cruz certainly wasn't.
I'd say Jeb Bush.
No. That's I guess that's my point. The sarcasm of you throw somebody out, John Kasich, even Chris Christie. Chris Christie comes out strong when he does his Sunday morning news shows, and he actually makes good points at times. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't that same person when he wasn't the same person when he ran as he was for governor.
No.
But if he was, would that have worked against Trump? What tone can defeat Trump would be the question I would ask as a political consultant. You've got the goods. What tone wins you this? It's not going after him. It's not, doing what Trump does. Trump owns that. I don't think you can beat Trump at his own game, is my point.
Well, and
by arguing
I can't
how
tell
he
you
argues.
I can't tell you that game works to the same extent anymore. For him, I don't know. It's not going to work for anybody else, but I don't know if it works for him.
Right. Well, as well.
Right.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, to that extent.
Yeah.
Because
we're putting this all in question form because we cannot read the future.
Because in 2016, he was an unknown quantity politically.
Yeah.
It was, like with all new candidates to the game, or at least to that game, a presidential run, I'm putting my trust in you based on, in that case, his business. In the case of Governor DeSantis, it would be, all right, successful governor. Not just successful. Someone who brought his state together, which is nothing. The question is, does it translate in 24? Which is not nothing, I think I meant to say. That's the whole thing. That's a big deal for Florida. That was a big deal last November. Is it going to be a big deal in 24?
866-90 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. To determine a driver's compliance, safety, accountability, or CSA score, safety event data is recorded and compared against that of other drivers. Drivers are given a CSA score, But unlike motor carrier scores, driver scores are only visible to enforcement officers during an audit. However, drivers' most recent 5 years of crash data and 3 years of roadside inspection data is made available to potential employers via the pre-employment screening program. So it's a good idea for drivers to review their online PSP record from time to time. A request for data review can be submitted via data queues to have errors corrected or to have a non-preventable crash designation indicated for a crash. In the event a current or previous carrier is audited, records on drivers with high CSA scores will be targeted first, but individual drivers are not subject to CSA interventions like motor carriers. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Quickly, I want to go to Tony in West Virginia because he's a Trump supporter. Tony, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
I just wanted to say that I've always been a Trump supporter. I just don't like the circus or the sideshow that comes along with his candidacy and presidency and everything with all the Russian collusion crap, and now he's got indictments he's going through. It's too much of a distraction, I think.
Let me ask you this, just quickly. When he says, when he calls him desanctimonious, does the name calling against, now the name calling has been effective for Trump. Is it effective, in your opinion, against DeSantis?
No, I don't think so. Right now, DeSantis looks like a choir boy to everybody, so I don't think it matters. I mean, the name calling is, Trump's been the best at it, I think, or maybe the worst, whatever you want to go with. It's always been in politics, but
right,
trying to find dirt on somebody, so that doesn't even bother me.
Well, no, I just wonder if you thought it was effective.
No, I don't think.
Yeah,
so.
Because that's the one thing we just never thought it was. And thanks so much. Thanks so much for your call. I just don't think it's effective. And the other thing that's been interesting is when Trump has criticized DeSantis, and he's expected at one of his massive rallies, he expects what he would get if he was going after a John Kasich, or a Ted Cruz.
Right.
He didn't get it.
No, I would say outside of the primary, because he changed his nickname for Joe Biden from Sleepy Joe Biden to Corrupt Joe Biden.
Yeah, I saw it.
Now, that applies.
Yes, but you'll get cheers for that. Yes.
I don't know, if that's effective or not. Somebody would have to, Frank Luntz or somebody would have to tell me.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Yeah, just interesting, because the one thing that the DeSantis people think, and this is what they believe based on their polling, that a majority of Republicans are looking for an option. And until you're an official option, you're not an option.
Yeah, and he's certainly a viable option. DeSantis is. Again, the trust is, that you would put in him as a voter or donor or party would be that he's done all these things as governor. But he's also made a lot of national news and hasn't really taken a hit. There are no bruises left on him based on the battles that he's taken on in Florida. So, to that extent, he hasn't flinched. They do like that about Trump. They like the straightforward attitude. They love that. But DeSantis can deliver that too.
When I saw DeSantis the other day say, shut down the border, it's out of control, shut it down.
Yeah.
I said, and I thought to myself, first thing I thought of, okay, what differentiates DeSantis from Trump on any issue?
Right.
And I know Trump tried to bring in the whole Social Security thing, which I don't, and then DeSantis went back and other Republicans fact-checked and said, you said the exact same thing a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
The Social Security and Medicare have to be reformed. And now you're saying you're not going to touch them. Well, of course, any responsible person has to look at you have to change it somehow. You either, for Social Security and Medicare, you either have to cut benefits or raise premiums. And maybe raise the age.
Yeah.
Social Security. Don't know if they're going to. That's not even. You don't even hear that talked about. Medicare, increasing the age. You hear that just for Social Security. But and so, that was like, okay, there's no issue there, because we all know, what any conservative thinks about it. Anybody knows you have to make changes. But the populist thing is, no, we won't touch it. Well, you have to. You've got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that went nowhere. And then what was the other thing?
Well, think about it. If a new president is sworn in January of 25, then they're going to be there. They want to be there for 2 terms, which takes you right up to, the election of 2032. If you think about it, that's when everybody looks at Social Security. The next president, especially if they're a 2-term president, has to deal with it.
Right.
You can't this is not, in the abstract anymore. Hey, way down the road in 2032, 2033. It's not down the road anymore. It's going to be at the end of the next president's second term, if they get 2 terms, and it's a new president sworn in January 25. So
but
you don't want that as your legacy as you go out the door, the implosion of Social Security.
If you look at all the issues out there, what differentiates DeSantis from Trump? Well, there's your answer right there. We can't think of it off the top of our head. What differentiates a Trump from a DeSantis, issue-wise? Mm-hmm. Well, if you really don't know and you believe, well, they're basically the same, then what's the only thing you're thinking of? Who's more electable?
Yeah, the presentation.
Presentation.
It's all about presentation. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
And I know, there was what was the other thing, too, that Trump brought up, where we said, you better watch out because it's going to boomerang right back at you, and it did. And it wasn't Social Security, it was something else. And it did. It came back at him, and then he wasn't talking about it much anymore, and I can't remember what the other issue was. And so he was trying to differentiate themselves on the issues, but Trump was attempting to, but it wasn't working.
Yeah, no, any of that obviously would come out on stage during a GOP debate. So our first shot of that, well, if not before then.
Well, but if I thought about this the other day, we didn't get a chance to talk about this because Trump was asked again, I think at the town hall meeting, will you endorse a candidate? Well, I don't know. It depends whether, if I thought the election was fair. Well, it's like, well, that's the RNC isn't going to take that. Remember, you don't participate unless you're willing to endorse the ultimate candidate. Will the RNC hold by that, or will they have to crumble on that?
Well, and is that going to play out during the primary? Forget about the general. State by state. Or are you going to have a claim that, well, that wasn't fair, that was rigged, that didn't happen?
Well, yeah, that's what he was.
That's the whole point, is that do you want the GOP the party doesn't want that mess in the primary. Because that will be the story. Forget about Trump versus DeSantis. It'll be about the GOP or the candidates claiming this is rigged, or the top candidate at the time, quite possibly, claiming it's rigged.
Right. I mean, what I got from the RNC is you either promise to endorse the nominee from the Republican Party, or you don't get to participate in the debates. Well, that's going to cause a ton of problems.
And it's such a horrible approach. It really is. Just stop it. Have the debates. And if someone doesn't endorse, or a number of them don't endorse, who cares? What you're doing is you're setting up the fire. Don't do that. Don't set up the fire. It may happen on its own, but you're making sure it's going to happen before you even kick off debate season. Yeah, stop it. It's a horrible idea. Because you may have Chris Christie is on stage, or he's not, because he's saying, well, I'm not going to endorse Trump if Trump is the nominee. So, which will likely be the case. Now, does anybody really care that Chris Christie isn't on stage? No. My point is it might get down to DeSantis and Trump at every debate. And we still don't know if Trump is going to agree to get on the stage and do debates.
Yeah.
And really, it's in part for the same reason.
So are the DeSantis people that say, look, the vast majority of Republicans are looking for another option.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for an off-ramp. When DeSantis announces, there's the off-ramp. And as I said, okay, we'll see in a couple of weeks after he announces whether he gets a bump.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 10 points or more, I would probably say, where he's down 40 points or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I say, okay, you never know what can happen at that point, and then the campaign starts. But if, they're saying that they're looking for an option, it's not an option on the issues.
Right.
It's an option strictly on who is electable. And the last caller who said, look, I'm a Trump fan. I voted for him all the time, but there's just too much stuff. And he wasn't necessarily even blaming Trump. He was just saying there's just too much stuff. There's too many things going on that interfere with it. Did he get screwed over? We just talked about the whole Russia collusion hoax after the Durham report came out. Trump was screwed over. And there was a lot of things that happened that were wrong that happened to Trump. But many Republicans are like, it happens in politics. We need to move on. We need to win.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to win, you've got to be able to get independents and some Democrats to come over.
Yeah.
And so I think when DeSantis gets in, then people really start mulling that particular decision. But I believe the only decision is electability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the most part, I think it always will be. I don't know that even if he comes out and says, look, I differ from Trump on, sanctions against this nation or that nation or war or, whatever. It's still going to be generally speaking, on issues, they're very much alike.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. So you say Friday before Memorial Day he'll announce.
I could see that being the case. We'll see.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't know.
You're building up. Hopefully you're building up for something. I don't know what that would be, though. But, yeah, before a 3-day holiday. I don't know. Do you want to do that on the Friday or do you want to do it on a Monday? Or Tuesday, the Tuesday after Memorial Day?
Well, Memorial Day Sunday, the day before Memorial Day, is not a big Sunday morning news show day, so that would be a big miss.
Yeah, so that's
because people are traveling.
Tuesday.
This weekend would be, Sunday would be. Do you get more leg, does it have more legs if you do it on a Monday? I don't know.
Well, you wouldn't do it on Monday. I mean, not Memorial Day, but
No.
Yeah,
this Monday. Yeah, definitely don't do it on Memorial Day. But yeah, I don't know. Because right now, too, you've got people traveling, you've got graduations going on.
June 1st, the beginning of hurricane season.
Yeah, there you go.
I was looking for any kind of date.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I don't know. I think that it could be, it's any date between now and June 1st. I think most people believe it's going to happen by the end of the month. So with them, with his press secretary stepping down and saying, I'm going to be doing something else with the governor and our country, well, I think that's obvious. And the new office there in Tallahassee that they were moving into yesterday. So, yeah, I think it's going to happen in a matter of days, as most everybody does. Just watch what's going on, and you can tell.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Radio 866-90 Red Eye. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, credit card debt set to hit $1 trillion. Wow.
Yeah.
It rose to a historic $1 trillion for the first 3 months of 2023.
And consumer debt passes $17 trillion for the first time. And there's been a slide in the demand for mortgages, so that's pretty interesting. That's total debt, consumer debt.
Yeah, credit card debt's going through the roof, and so are the interest rates to pay it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah, you look at that. You look at the under consumer debt. There's also the car loans, which you're seeing a greater number of delinquencies, especially going past 60 days. And that's a growing number. I think this is quite possibly why you saw, them backing down on the college debt fight. People are saying, look, I can't make my car payment. I'm not making all my other debts. You want me to pay off somebody else's college debt.
The average age of U.S. vehicles reaches a record high as the price of new vehicles soars, something that we talked about last week, Fox Business News. Mm-hmm. Latest stats out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and the price of cars, even though used cars, the prices have come down in that category, but the price for new cars keeps going up. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a problem, going forward. The problem with, that debt, if they can't pay, it doesn't matter if it's an older car, if they don't have it paid off and they're having trouble making that payment. Certainly for new cars. I don't know what happens with the newer cars that are just essentially, I guess, going to be repoed, a number of them.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.